Hey, how's it going? Today I'm going to be teaching you how not to build a ramp. Well, actually, this is going to be me sharing my experience building this ramp and providing a couple tips and tricks. I'm not a carpenter, and this is the first time I've ever tried to build something like this, so I'm sure a lot of other people could use some of this information. First off, for BMX riders, apparently a 6-foot radius is more comfortable compared to an 8-foot radius, as it's less steep. However, I was hoping that the top would be a little bit more steep so I can get better results with double pegs. The height ended up being 4 feet, so to correct that I would have gone up a little bit higher by cutting from another piece of wood, as the sides were all one piece of wood. This cut here, try and line this one up, about like that, so that's where we got those lines. One thing I wish I did was choose better plywood pieces, as some of them were bent, chipped, or just a little bit wrong, and I ended up over sanding to correct it and just created more of a mess for myself. Speaking of sanding, make sure that both of your sides are equally sanded down and match the best that they can, as it does become more of an issue if they're not when you're trying to put these 2x4s in between. All in all, it turned out alright though. As long as you can get them roughly straight, it'll end up being okay. Big tip before you put the plywood on, soak the hell out of it, maybe soak it the night before and then soak it again when you're putting it back on. One thing I learned after the fact was that you can cut halfway through your plywood in increments. This will help with bending it and will help prevent it from cracking. Otherwise you're going to have to put a lot of force into it by standing on it, putting some weights on it maybe, and just hope that it just doesn't crack.
Talk about a long night trip, Don't ever wait, you get traces of my past.
Also, don't do what I did here. That's not how you build a deck, or a deck extension. This was really sketchy. I don't know why I did this. So this may be an obvious one, but I have to be honest with you, I couldn't believe it. The more wood you use, the heavier it's gonna be. This thing ended up being really, really heavy, so moving it just from my garage to the driveway was a really difficult task. Wherever you're gonna put it, it's probably gonna stay there. Works. You can see that's a little bit of a problem. You can't really bump off this and then it curves that way. GoPro can't really show that, but then the deck is a little bit too high, but still works. Obviously this is gonna sit up a little bit. Might cut that down a little bit so it sits flat because the driveway is on an arch here. So I later corrected this by putting some planks of wood under that, but yeah, that's not supposed to sit like that. Some other small things. If it doesn't need coping, don't put coping on there. It just adds to the costs, and overall it was probably one of the harder things for me to do. It just took a longer time. And I have to be honest, I was really dissatisfied with how the coping came out. It pretty much does nothing. Try and line everything up the best that you can. As you can see here, the first layer of plywood under that second layer is sticking out. That ended up causing problems at the top there, so the whole sheet of plywood was crooked, which means that there's a gap at the top. Alright, so see part of the problem, what I was saying before. Windy today. This coping doesn't give me enough room to land on it because it's got a little bit of a arc here. One of my biggest recommendations is for you to build a much bigger deck than this one. At least a solid 2 or 3 more feet. I really want to start learning more tricks, and I want to try fly-out tricks, but man, I really don't have the space there or behind it to start doing that kind of stuff. Overall, if you have the budget, or just the will to ride, or you just really want to start building something, try and start with this. It's not the hardest thing in the world. Yeah, I messed it up a bit, but you can definitely build one and still be somewhat satisfied with your work at the end of the day. Plus, you can ride it. You can just ride it whenever, and I'm sure you'll get adjusted to everything that the ramp throws at you.